So once again, thank you everybody for joining. And this month's session is pretty interesting because we will be focusing on a very specific topic, which is the Middle East. So we'll be talking about how you can kickstart and launch your hospitality career in the Middle East with RMC Asia. And this is one of our, I'd say, most dynamic and exciting destinations. So for the session today, I will be joined by Dragana from our host relations team. Hi, Dragana.
Hi, ladies. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining me for this today. I'm pretty excited for the session. And without further ado, I think we can get started.
Yeah, I think we can go ahead.
So first of all, before we go into all the questions, I would just like to give a brief intro to RMC Asia for those who might be watching this for the first time. So RMC Asia is an organization based in Bangkok, Thailand, although our team members are located all around the world. And what we do is we provide cultural exchange programs specifically in the hospitality industry. And what this means is that we have direct partnerships with 4-star and 5-star hotels across several countries in Asia as well as the Middle East. And that is how we're able to place students, graduates, and young professionals directly into hotels. And again, before we begin, just a quick heads up, we do have a special announcement at the end of the session. So if anybody joins in, please just stay till the end because there will be something interesting there. Okay, so I think, Dragana, we can take it from here. The first thing that I would like to start with is just to talk a bit about the Middle East. And since you have a lot of experience and a lot of insight with Middle Eastern countries specifically, could you please share with us why exactly is it such a great and ideal destination for cultural exchange in hospitality?
Of course. Why Middle East? Well, Middle East, as many know, is the home to some of the most luxurious hotels and resorts in the world. Think about the cities like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha City, Kuwait. It's a perfect place for any young professional to kick off their hospitality career. Reason being is because it offers a perfect mix of vibrant lifestyle and career growth. Basically, this is why. One of the main advantages is that it offers all three program types. So for interns, we have internships, then we have management trainings, and we have contractual positions. So it makes it easier for anyone to find the right fit. Another advantage is that it's open to most nationalities. So visa denials are super rare. There is very few restrictions. So it's giving everyone a chance to get placed quicker than anywhere else, I would say. Another one is the lifestyle, like I said. So it's not just a work experience. This is also the lifestyle experience. So the city is very modern, very safe, very beautiful to live in. So most of our interns, they transition in full-time roles after the internship is finished. So while you're living really nice life, you also get to follow your career path. So this is it's like a perfect win-win situation.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing, Dragana. And before we move on, actually, I think this is something I wanted to address at the start, but we often refer to the Middle East as GCC region. So what does GCC stand for?
GCC, I would need to check exactly the meaning of. So those are countries that entail United Arab Emirates, Oman, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar. So those are the EMEA region, we can call it.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think it is the Gulf countries, right? Gulf Cooperation Council, if I'm not wrong.
The second C is for cooperation, Gulf cooperation countries. But long story short, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, and Kuwait, Qatar. Those are the GCC region.
Mm-hmm. And this is just a heads up for those who might be watching. Sometimes when we work with destinations, we might refer to Middle East countries as the GCC. So don't get confused. It is the same thing. Okay, so moving on, I think, Dragana, this would be an interesting topic for you to discuss because you do work with our host partners as well as with students or, young professionals who are applying for the programs. So I think you have a very good idea of what exactly a lot of hosts and HR managers are looking for. So can you give us a quick overview of that?
So the main skills, or we can say core values, the hosts are looking for are professionalism, flexibility, adaptability, teamwork, and a positive attitude more than anything, I would say. Reason why every department is like, you can think of it as a puzzle, and every person working in that puzzle has a role. So certain skills like soft skills, person cannot be really taught, while hard skills, they can learn along the way as they go, right? So I'll give you an example. Person with a positive attitude will be willing to learn things they don't really know about. And working in a kitchen is actually working in a team. So that's where the teamwork would come in. Being flexible is a really important skill as well, because in the kitchen, maybe the chefs will need you to move across the stations, do different tasks when asked, and you should show ability and willingness to actually be flexible with that. So if for people who are really open to learn, they have higher chance of getting placed. Even we can say during interviews, if there is a question that you don't know the answer of, or a task you've never done, instead of having all the answers, you can show your willingness to learn and maybe be liked by the interviewer more than someone with a lot of experience. So not to discourage anyone, if there is a lack of experience in your CV, that's not a deal breaker. There is still a huge chance for you to get placed if you have and possess these skills, and if you're willing to work on yourself. So I would say professionalism, adaptability, flexibility, positive attitude, and teamwork are the main skills that hosts are looking for.
All right, that's great. Thank you for sharing this. And I think you did mention the kitchen. So this is something that we are focusing a little bit more during this quarter because I believe kitchen candidates do require a bit more technical experience and not just soft skills. So do you think you could share with us something that interns applying for the kitchen department should expect from their interviews with HR managers?
Yes. So given the CV, normally the host would review a candidate's CV and they would know how much of experience person has, right? So say, for example, someone was already an intern in a kitchen in a, let's say, a 4-star property somewhere else. If they think the intern does have an experience, the questions they may come would be like, can you describe a dish? Could you tell us about the cleanliness standards in the kitchen, maybe the protocols that are followed in the kitchen, the temperature of the dishes that they have to be kept in, something like that. Something to actually demonstrate that they have worked in a kitchen. For others who do not have any culinary experience, questions that may come is, what would you do if you were in this situation, you were asked this? So this is about you showing that you have a passion for the department and for learning the field.
All right, thank you. That's good to know. And I believe for some of the other departments, I think the questions would be a little bit more general. And for example, for front office, they would focus quite a bit on finding out whether the candidate is, friendly, approachable, good at communication, and so on.
Exactly how you said. So no one can teach you an attitude. This is really about who you are. And if they chose to interview you, that means they already like you. They just need to confirm that the person on the paper is actually the person they're speaking to over the call. So you just need to do a proper preparation for the call. But again, who you are will be visible even during the call.
All right, that's some great advice, and I hope this is helpful for those who haven't done any of such interviews before, because I think this is I would say, a very professional situation, and also it's done virtually. So for some people who are doing this for the first time, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking.
It can be nerve-wracking, I do agree. However, again, not to discourage, I can tell you from my experience, I've seen interns with less experience landing amazing jobs, internships, just because of their attitude, just because of the passion they showed and the willingness to learn they showed during the interaction with the interviewer. So they were able to really shine. So again, do not be discouraged if there is a lack of experience. The hosts, they do understand that you're fresh off the college and that you're going there to learn. So focus on who you can become, I would say.
That's really nice to know. And yeah, I think this is good to note. And I'll just add one last note here. If you do register and you do join our programs, before you conduct any interviews with HR managers, we are also able to arrange a preparation call. So it may be either with Jagana or any of our other host relations team members. They will let you know how the interviews are done, what kind of questions to expect, and also how to present yourself and your strengths in the best way.
That's correct.
Okay, and then the next thing I would like to talk about is working conditions, because of course, things like labor laws or the way that hotels work can be different across different countries, especially if we compare, let's say, regions like Southeast Asia versus the Middle East. So, could you share with us, Dragana, what candidates can expect from the working schedule if they are working at a hotel in one of the GCC countries?
Of course. So typically, in any hospitality industry establishment in the Middle East, the working schedule falls down to 48 hours a week, which is 6 working days a week with 1 day off. So that's the industry standard for everyone, regardless of the position in the hierarchy you hold. This is what you can expect. Now, the hotels are known for shift rotations. So again, that's where the flexibility comes in. You may have a morning shift, mid shift, evening shift. Again, the positive in this is the shift swaps are a very, very common trend in the hotels. So if you do not like the certain shift, there is always a way to swap it with a colleague if they're willing to do so. So again, flexibility from colleagues come into place. Days off as well are rotational, so they rarely would fall on weekends because weekends are considered to be the busiest days of the week for the hotel industry. It may happen, but it's just not guaranteed. But do keep in mind, if you show a decent amount of flexibility, your managers do appreciate that. So that's actually the step forward to your career building. So that's industry standard everywhere in the UAE. Interns are generally not entitled to leave and public holidays. Again, it may be exceptions where the host establishments do allow that, but generally it's not a common practice for them to get a public leave during the internships. If a person experiences medical emergency, that's a different story. Everybody has the right to get sick, but personal leave during internships normally is not a thing. Days off as well, just to mention, you can also trade your days off with another colleague from the same department. So there is a lot of room for flexibility, I would say. And there are people who have preferred shifts, so you can always swap with these people and actually adjust your daily life to your preferred lifestyle. Not always, but it's possible.
I think this is one of the benefits for working in hospitality specifically, because usually in operational departments, they do work in shifts. And again, if you're flexible, if your colleagues are flexible, and if the HR managers or supervisors also are okay with it, then of course you can arrange this based on your comfort level. But also, I think one thing I would like to add here is that for certain departments in the back office, the working schedule can be a little bit more regular. So as far as I know, if you're working, for example, in the HR department as an intern or in sales and marketing, you may have like a maybe Monday to Saturday arrangement with a regular working hours from 9 to 5 or something like that.
That is true.
Okay, and then another interesting thing to address is job scope. So
Yes.
I personally, when I do interviews with candidates, sometimes they ask like, oh, do I get the same responsibilities as a full-time employee, or do I get less? What kind of training do I get? And so on. So can you help me answer some of these questions?
Sure. So the job scope in terms of the workload for interns is definitely less than it is for the full-time employees, meaning to say the interns, they have a more structured way of doing things and learning. Hosts are super aware that they come there to learn. It's a learning curve for them. So they may take on less responsibilities. They may not be entitled for long-term projects. definitely will have less work to be done. However, they're expected to follow the same standard of professionalism. So showing up on time, being professional, being flexible, being adaptable. So you are expected to perform just as any regular staff, just with less responsibility. You may not have as many tasks. However, everything is exactly the same. The way and a full-time employee, which you probably will be one day, and that's hopefully the goal of the intern to do transition to full-time role, is to perform at the same level as a full-time employee. So super similar expectations. When you're wearing a uniform, a guest does not know that you're an intern, where the someone next to you is a full-time employee. They see you as equal. So they do have the same expectations of you.
Yeah, I think this clears it up quite a bit. And for those who are applying for internships, just another bit of reassurance, you will definitely receive training when you just start. So of course you will be aware and you will be taught how to do the responsibilities and the tasks that you do get.
Yes, there is normally a person which is in charge and assigned to you to basically follow through your program, to teach you things. We work with hospitality hotels that are actually at high standard of that. So we make sure that this is not cheap labor. This is personally meant for learning. So internships at its core is a learning experience. So emphasis on learning. So not to for anyone not to worry, you will receive a proper training on how things are done. At certain point, you will be expected to know how things are done, but you will be taught those things. So do not worry that you don't know exactly how something works at the very beginning. That is normal.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so moving on to another big question that we do get from a lot of candidates, it's about the placement process. And by placement process, we do mean matching you with hotels and placing you in the hotels. So Dragana, could you explain to us a little bit about how this process works? Because I think you deal with it quite a lot.
You used a really good word, match. So matching things is how this works. So the placement process is all about finding the right fit for you and the hotel. So it has to be a win-win for intern to like the place where they're placed, and for them to be certain that they found the right intern for themselves. So that will depend on many factors. Placement process will depend on your gender, your nationality, your language skills, your availability as well, if they have immediate hiring needs, for example, and what they're looking for. So think of it as a match between what they need and what you're offering at the time. So that will affect the placement process. It may stretch anywhere between few weeks, even to few months. Do not think that few months is a long period of time for finding a really good hotel. That may take that much of time, but it's worth it at the end, because staying permanently in a place will be a perfect situation for both parties if you're happy where you're at. Now, there is another factor, that's hiring season. So not all hotels operate in the same way. Some hotels have they're employing throughout the year, while others have peak season, and only then they're basically employing during those high seasons. So I would say just be patient, practice your interview skills, the right opportunity will come along. So the biggest misconception that the placement happens immediately. That's exactly not how it works. But it's worth the wait.
Yes, and speaking about timelines, we do get asked often, why is it taking so much longer than expected? Although in the beginning, we do inform all of our candidates that the process can take anywhere from 2 to 6 months, also depending again on when you applied, what kind of position you applied for, if you chose one destination or more. These are all factors that affect how fast we can get an opportunity for you.
And thank you for touching upon that. Yes, being open to more destinations will definitely increase your chances. Same goes for the departments. The more open to things you are, definitely more likely the opportunity will come along faster. Now, the timeline is influenced by the hiring needs. You can have a greatest profile, but it's really about the needs of the hotel and what you're offering at the moment. So not to discourage anyone, it can take longer than expected. But good things normally in life do take time. So I wouldn't say 2 months, 3 months is a really long period if you're getting a long-term career growth. If that's the final product that you're getting, I think that would be worth it. Some hosts are more responsive than others. Some are slower than others. So again, a season. If the hotel, let's say their guests are mainly Russian, for example, they may have a higher need for Russian speakers, or certain departments have certain roles or certain genders, like maybe they would need a hostess who is specifically a female. So all those factors are coming into play. Again, it doesn't mean that anything is wrong with the CV or your profile. It's just about the matching of the needs. That's why the process sometimes can take longer.
All right, thank you for sharing the details. I think this will be quite reassuring for those who think that, okay, I'm waiting for too long. But at the same time, this is also a heads up if you are in the process of applying or you're planning to apply, we would recommend you to do so several months in advance of your preferred starting date.
That's right.
Okay, and then speaking of setting some more realistic expectations for the process, I think we can talk a bit about some of the misunderstandings that candidates might have with the whole process, whether it's the timelines or the offers or the salaries. I think earlier Jagana mentioned that there is a misconception that, registering can lead to immediate placement. That's not the case. Again, like we mentioned, it can take several months. But how about things like offers or allowances and how much you get paid per month?
Sure. So the biggest misunderstanding, again, is that one is going to attend an internship for financial gain. And your main and end goal is gaining experience and building a skill. International exposure is what you get. A career path is what you're building, not a financial gain. So the salaries vary, again, host to host, but the range we can say its average is around $250 to $300. It may be a little higher than that, again, depending on the hotel, but that's the commonality for all the hosts. Now, there are perks in addition to that, such as tips or service charge, which are a very common practice, I would say, as well in most of the hotels the RMC Asia works with. But that's the standard. So as an intern, you're just at the start of your career. You need to understand that you're the very beginning. So that's not definitely how any job in the world works. You start from the scratch and then you build your way up. So you got to be patient with yourself and with the process, I would say. What most of the hotels we work with cover is your medical insurance, your visa documentation. You will get meals while you're on duty. Your uniforms will be provided as well. You will get a free laundry. Again, some hotels may offer you additional perks such as discounts in their facilities. That also can happen. Flight tickets, again, depending on the host, but flight tickets are normally not covered by the host properties. Again, allowance, as the word suggests, is for you to cover your living costs, not for you to come back to your home country richer. It's simply not that.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And just to add one more point to what you just mentioned, the hotels do also provide free accommodation or staff housing to all the interns and trainees that they have. So you will not need to worry about having to cover your rent, for example. And even if a hotel doesn't have on-site accommodation, they will provide additional allowance so that you can cover your own rental fees at your own place if that's necessary.
Yes, I forgot. Thank you for reminding me. The accommodation is a big one. In the UAE, the good news, the accommodations are very modern. So they're shared. You will normally have a roommate. However, the buildings are very modern in general. So they normally would come equipped with a really nice cafeteria. They would even sometimes have a gym, sometimes even access to the pool, depending on how, advantaged it is. But normally those are really nice accommodations. And you will get to hang out with a lot of people from different cultures, and international exposure is really what allows you in future to work with anyone, anywhere. That's a really big advantage. Think of it as a really something you're getting that you're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, speaking of things like accommodation or any other perks and benefits, sometimes we do get asked whether RMC Asia can help you or the candidate to negotiate with the host about certain terms in the agreement. So when this question comes, what exactly are the factors that we can negotiate with the host versus the things that the candidate or the intern or trainee has to handle on their own?
So we would step in for serious workplace issues such as harassment, safety concerns, workplace, issues like unfair treatment, discrimination, which are rarely happening. But if they do, we can escalate these to HR. We can intervene ourselves. However, things like managing your schedule, shift swaps, your performance, those are on you. So everything that's not really of a serious matter is on you. This is basically how you build your professionalism, by learning how to handle daily tasks one day at a time. So anything related to the operational flow, the intern has to handle themselves. Everything that's out of their control, what's happening around them, like a serious workplace violations, RMC Asia will step in.
That's right. Thank you for sharing. And just to add a small note here, some of these examples are things like the working schedule. Like if you go to the Middle East and the hotel offer says that you're working for 6 days a week, up to 48 hours a week, that is normal. And you wouldn't be able to ask RMC Asia like, oh, can you please negotiate so we're only working for 5 days a week? Just a heads up.
Yeah. Once the contract is signed, you know what to expect. If you're late for work, you don't reach out to RMCH, you need to reach out to your supervisor. This is what we're trying to say.
Yep, exactly. All right, and then I think moving on to a more fun and interesting part, we would like to touch upon the culture and daily life in the Middle East. So, Dragana, could you please share with us some of the cultural norms or features of the Middle East that candidates might want to keep in mind when they're moving there?
Sure. So, UAE and Middle East generally is a beautiful place to live. Seriously saying this from experience. It's a perfect mix of modern life and traditional culture. So the UAE is a Muslim country. So obviously you will have to adhere to certain rules, such as, one big one is drinking alcohol in public. That's not allowed. So respect for local customs, respect for local people living there. The way you dress, there is a dress code that, shows respect to the local community. However, the cities are very vibrant. They're active 24/7. It's a very, very safe place to live in. So you can walk the streets. I'm not even exaggerating when saying this, any time of the day. Everything is beautifully lit. The streets are clean. Everything is international. So access to the public beaches are free, and all the beaches are beautiful. A taxi is very affordable. Public transport is very affordable. So it's easy place to live in, to get by and to live in. You can easily have access to the shopping festivals, to the malls. There is always something going on in Dubai. We call it a city that never sleeps. And not just Dubai, like an entire region is like that. So desert safaris are there as well. I don't know any person who would say that they were bored for 1 minute living in the Middle East.
Yeah, I think this sounds very exciting and it's definitely very dynamic. I know the whole region is quite, I would say, like the vibe is very similar, although something that we often get asked is like, for example, some people don't really want to go live in a big city or like a very urban environment. In this case, they might want to look into the other Middle Eastern countries like Oman and Bahrain, because I would say they're at the same level of like luxury and modernity, but they are more, maybe like a little bit more quiet, not as busy, not as, how to say, not very urban metropolis vibe like Dubai or Doha, for example. So this is something I hear often as well.
That is true. So they have the same standard of working and living, but just in a smaller scale. It's not as busy as Dubai and let's say Qatar is, but they offer the same standard.
All right, so I think this is about it for us. Very interesting insights, and it's especially nice to hear more about what it's like to live in the Middle East, because I know a lot of our first-time candidates maybe have never been to this region before at all. So, you might not know what to expect. It might be very new. It might be very different from what you thought, but definitely keep your mind open. And I feel like from all of the interns we've had going there so far, I don't think I've heard anything other than positive comments about living there. So yes, thank you for elaborating on all of these points, Dragana.
I just remember the GCC exact abbreviation stands for Gulf Cooperation Council.
Yes, yes, that's right. Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody will be pleasantly surprised. This is the biggest misconception students have, that they will be faced with a very different culture, but in reality, it's a very westernized, very tolerant way of living. It's a beautiful way of living. So it's a mostly positive and good news once they actually go and experience life there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a good fit for many people. Even if you think you wouldn't like it, you will. Although one thing to note is, maybe I will put it as part of the Q&A session. Can you mention to us a little bit about the general climate in the Middle East? So maybe for those who are moving from a totally different climate.
Sure. So UAE and Middle East generally is known to be a hot country. So it's hot throughout the year. Now, from May, I would say, till maybe September, you can say the weather simmers down a bit. You can actually walk the streets, and it's really pleasant. Summers are really hot. However, everything is air conditioned. Anywhere you go, there is air conditioning. It's humid, that is true. But again, you get used to the climate with time. Everyone gets used to the climate with time. It's always sunny, so there is very, like, almost no rainy days. And you know that sun affects your vitamin D and the positivity in general. It's always sunny, but it's hot. That's the truth.
All right, that's good to know. So yeah, for whoever is watching this, if you're thinking to go there, just be prepared in terms of comfortable clothing, and maybe just if you are there, just make sure to stay hydrated and don't be directly in the sun for too long.
And wear a sunblock if you do.
Yes, for sure. Okay, do we have any questions from the audience at all before we wrap up? Maybe not. We have a quiet group today. Oh yeah, one more question, Dragana. I will just step in to do the Q&A because we don't have any questions. In terms of like climate and environment, you did mention that there are beaches as well. So it's not like only city and desert, right?
Right. There is so many beaches, public beaches, private beaches, with activities happening, with volleyball tournaments. There is always, again, an activity happening, but access to public beach is free. And again, they're accessible to everyone throughout the year.
That's good to know. I think there's no shortage of activities and entertainment in any.
For sure. There's always something to do. There's always something happening in the mall, a cultural festival. But if you ask me, the biggest highlight of living there is the exposure to cultural diversity. People who are open to learning new things, experiencing new cultures, can really come back enriched to their home countries. Learning about other people's perspectives, religions, languages, really gives you an upper hand in dealing with and working in hospitality anywhere and with anyone. That's not something that money can buy. Honestly, that's what you get with living there and having friends from all over the world. So cultural diversity is a really big one.
Definitely. I know there are many people from many different nationalities and backgrounds. So it's certainly one of the best parts of living and working in the Middle East.
It is.
Okay. So I think for now, that is about it since we don't have any questions. And I think we have covered quite a lot of detail about this region. So for my exciting announcement, which I mentioned at the beginning of the session, we are offering a limited time discount on all of our fees. So for those who are applying for the first time, maybe you've just had your interview or something like that, you would be eligible for 20% off on both the registration and professional services fee. Of course, if you attended the webinar, which I'm tracking who is attending, so don't worry. And if you're seeing this, you can scan this QR code here to apply and get the discount. So I'm just going to leave this for a few more seconds. All right. And with that, this will be the end of our session. Thank you so much, Dragana, for sharing all of this exciting and interesting information about the Middle East, because I personally have never been there, and I know a lot of our audience probably hasn't either. So this was very, very helpful.
Thank you for having me on the call.
All right. So we will be back with another webinar next month as usual, but thank you again, everybody, for joining. And if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to us at this email, hello@rmcasia.org, or simply visit our website, which is rmcasia.org as well. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jagana.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.